Let's get into your questions. If you're new here, my name is Abby, and here we talk about lifestyle and motherhood from a traditional and classic perspective. I'm so glad you're here. And today I'm going to be answering your questions. I'm going to be getting into the nitty-gritty with you all, and I'm excited to see what you guys asked. So I posted on Instagram and asked you guys to put in any questions you had about motherhood, dating, the culture, anything that was on your mind. So let's hop right in. I got a lot of responses, and let's see how many we can get done before my son wakes up from his nap. P.S. If you're new here, I would love if you would subscribe to my channel. It's totally free, and you'll get to see anytime I post a new video. Okay, let's hop into the first question. How to speak to my father who says my homeschooled kids need public school for adversity. We homeschool because gender politics and just general wrong values being taught, which my father does agree with, so he sees the flaws with public school but won't let up. So here's what I would say. I would say at some point, this is just your responsibility as the parent. You get to make the decision. So if your father is saying that, oh, your kids need to be in public school for adversity or for social skills or for whatever else it is, you can just explain to him why you don't believe that that is necessary for your children to grow up and be good members of society. The truth is that any school could offer adversity, but could also offer the exact opposite, in the sense that you could be the victim of bullying or you could be the bully. You don't know what your kid's role is going to be in school. And I know plenty of kids who went to public school who did not face adversity there. I know plenty of people who did face adversity. So I always hate these talking points that seem like, oh, well, everyone knows that you need to send your kids to school because that's what everyone does. Everyone needs adversity in school, or everyone needs socialization from school. There's a lot of things about homeschooling that you don't get in public school and that we don't talk about. We treat public school like it's the obvious choice, like everyone has to do it, but it's only been this way in the recent past. I mean, most people taught their kids at home for much of history. The idea that we have to put our kids in public school, and the truth is, no one asks the same questions about public school as they do about homeschooling. They'll just assume that you just put your kids in school and that's what you do. No one asks the questions of like, what are the bad things that could happen in public school? What are the alternatives? Because, well, obviously everyone gets sent to public school. But when it comes to homeschooling, everyone acts like, well, that's just an odd choice because there's so many other options. Are you sure you don't want to send your kids to public school? Because that's what we have always done. I don't think that that's correct. And so I think at the end of the day, what you just need to say to your father is, this is a decision we've made for our family. We've decided that there's a lot of really great reasons for us to homeschool. We think that there's a lot of positives to that are only going to be negative on the other side if we send our children to public school, and we feel confident in our decision. And as your kids grow up and as they continue to be good, strong members of society, I think that's going to prove over time that you've made the right decision. And of course, homeschooling isn't for everyone, and homeschooling has to be done with a certain intentionality, where of course I'm gonna make time for my kids to socialize. I'm gonna make time for them to do extracurriculars. And I'm not gonna just like plop them in front of the TV when we're not learning. Of course, those are things I'm sure you're taking into account. And I think most homeschooling parents in today's day and age take into account. But that is really what I would do, is just be forthright, be honest about your guys' choice. You feel confident about it, you feel good about it, and just stay firm in that choice and in that decision. Were you a virgin when you got married? Should I stay a virgin and risk losing my man? So question number one is yes, I was a virgin when I got married. It was very important to me to save sex for someone I was completely committed to feel really good about my choice to have sex with someone who wanted to start a family with me and who loved me and had made this public declaration that we were going to be together and that we were going to stay together. That was incredibly important to me. That doesn't mean I wasn't physical. I like to be perfectly honest about that because I don't want people to assume things about my past that aren't true. But being a virgin, I was a virgin when I got married. As far as losing your man, if you decide to stay a virgin, if your man is pressuring you to have sex before you're married, that is not a man you should be with. Of course you should risk losing that man. I would say break up with him on the spot. If he is making you feel like you need to have sex with him before you get married or else he's gonna break up with you, he is not the right guy for you. Good riddance. Advice on how to be modest with modern fashion. I think that there's a lot of really wonderful ways to be modest with modern fashion. There's a lot of like modern fashion that happens to be modest right now. For example, you can wear a shirt under a dress and it's very in. You can wear midi lengths, longer skirts, and that's very in. There's a lot of styles going around that are modest and they just happen to be modest. And so I think for me, the way that I've always approached fashion and being modest is finding trends and finding styles that I enjoy that also happen to be modest, rather than always choosing something modest that is not trendy, is frumpy, doesn't fit you well. You want to choose some things that you like and you really enjoy and fit in with the kind of current trends that are going around, if that's what you're interested in, or just more classic styles that happen to be modest. So for example, I really like midi dresses. I think they're really pretty. They happen to be very popular. So I can go out and find a bunch of midi dresses at TJ Maxx. And it's not like I went to a store that only sells modest clothing. I went to a normal store that happens to have options that are modest. That, for me, always brought me the most joy when it came to incorporating modest style into my wardrobe. Do you think women with short hair are feminine? Yes, I think that your hair has very little to do with your femininity. I've had a pixie cut. I've had friends who have pixie cuts. For me, being feminine is about having a nurturing soul and heart. And if you want to take care of others and create a welcoming home, that is much more important than the length of your hair. Now, I don't think, if you are in this stage of your life where you are dating, I don't think that having a pixie cut or short hair is always going to be the best option to attract a man who is looking for a more traditional woman, just because men like long hair. That's not to say that it can't look amazing on someone, but I think for a lot of men, they look at long hair and they think, wow, that's really, really attractive. That is very feminine. And so if you are in the stage where you are taking seriously looking for a man to marry, I wouldn't necessarily go with really, really short hair. But if you are married and you've talked about it with your husband and he's on board, then yeah, why not? You can cut your hair if you want to. I think that there's always flexibility there. I just think that, like, realistically, most men like longer hair. And if you are trying to be respectful to your spouse, or you're just trying to attract a guy that you've never met before, having long hair or longer hair, a bob, I think is absolutely like within that range, is going to make a little more sense in that situation. Do you ever think about singing again? Sometimes, but at the end of the day, the lifestyle of singing just never made sense for me. And so fitting singing into my current lifestyle, I'm always happy to do. I mean, I've done a couple concerts here and there, and honestly, I haven't done one for my channel, like a music video for my channel, in a while, but I think I definitely could. And when I do that, that brings me joy. But I also sing to my son twice a day for his nap and for his bedtime, and I absolutely love doing that. What does your Sabbath day consist of? How do you prepare for it as a mom? That's an interesting question. So I wouldn't say that preparing for Sabbath as a mom is entirely different than preparing for it as a wife, because really the biggest part of preparing for Sabbath is cooking, because you can't cook on Sabbath. So I have to cook everything we need for Friday night and Saturday, unless we're invited to someone's house for a meal, on Friday day or Thursday night. So that's like the biggest preparation thing. And then on Sabbath itself, we don't use electricity unless it's already kind of set up. So like if the light's already on, we can keep it on. We don't turn it off, but we don't turn on lights, and we don't drive and stuff like that. So our Sabbath day is really just about faith and family and community, right? We go to synagogue and we pray. We see the people in our community and our friends, and we spend time with our family, and we don't use our phones. We don't use electronics. We don't use technology. So we really get to invest time and energy into those really important things. I love Sabbath, and it's a really wonderful way to connect with my family, connect with my son, connect with my husband, and connect with our friends. I like it more as a mom because I get to spend more time with my baby, and that's really cool. Okay, quick water break. I had to grab my water bottle. Is it good to work as a nanny to prepare for motherhood, or should I use my degree? I don't know what your degree is in. And I don't think there's anything wrong with using your degree if you want to get some savings lined up. So by the time you get married, you have a little more flexibility so that you can be a stay-at-home mom. But I think being a nanny is also a wonderful option. First of all, being a nanny can pay very well. And if you feel like you want more experience dealing with little children and kind of learning your way around that, I am all for it. I think that's a wonderful idea, and it's a really beautiful way to spend your time. So yeah, absolutely. Why not check it out? But you can also use your degree and enjoy this time before you have children. And eventually maybe your degree will end up transferring in some way where you can use it to work part-time or to work once your children are grown. That's how I always view it. Do some of your views on sex before marriage stem from religious views? Absolutely. I'm very honest about this. My views on many topics are influenced by my religion, but at the same time, I can logically explain why I believe what I believe, and it doesn't have anything to do with religion. And I think that that's a very effective and important way to approach these ideas in today's day and age. You can't say, I don't believe that people should have sex before marriage because God said so, to somebody who doesn't believe in God. It just won't convince them. What you can say is, I don't believe that people should have sex before marriage because family formation is the main purpose of sex. And if you happen to have an unplanned pregnancy when you're married, you can work together to make sure that that is still a healthy home for that child. But if you're not married, then it's gonna be a lot more difficult. Being able to define your views logically is super important. Being able to understand them rationally makes every argument you make to yourself very, very convincing, as opposed to just depending on faith, which I'm all for. Morality stems from religion, but I think it's also important to understand why you believe what you believe from a logical and rational perspective. How do you find other conservative moms to be friends with? And are you able to be friends with moms who are left-leaning and don't share the same values? So finding other conservative moms, that is tricky. For me, most of the friends that I've made are through my synagogue. So I would say through faith-based communities, because usually the people who share your faith also share your values. So for me, that's been the easiest way to make conservative mom friends. But a lot of stay-at-home moms, not all, but many, depending on the area, tend to be more conservative. And so if you go to play gyms or if you go to the library, the moms who are there with their kids are also the moms who probably or may have more traditional values. So I would say that is a really good way to meet people. I've had a really good success in that, and I've met some really wonderful people in these spaces. As far as having friends who are moms who have different values, I think it depends on what those values that you differ about are. Some things are not so important, and okay, we won't talk about them, and they're not going to affect my kids, and they're not going to affect your kids. But there are some things that I would not want my child to be around. And so if you as a mom believe that transgender ideology is great and is good and something that you want to raise your kids around, I don't think I can be friends with you because your child may end up talking to my child about ideas that I don't agree with. And I think that that's a hard situation. So I would say yes and no, depending on the topic. Recommendations for homemaking in old houses. Mine's 123 years old, and I want to mix my style with the old. I love living in old houses. Oh my gosh, my husband and I love traditional style. Old houses are absolutely glorious. Of course, they're difficult because you have to deal with the structural differences between older houses and newer houses, but they're so gorgeous. There's a few different elements of homemaking. One is look up your style, in the sense that figure out what style you like. Do you like more traditional? Do you like more colonial? Do you like French country? Do you like cottage? Figure out what your language is when it comes to interior design, and then see what you can make work with your home. We love traditional style. Our house happens to be very modern, so we are always kind of working those two things to see how we can balance them best. And I think that the same is going to be true for you. If you have a more modern sense of style and you're living in an older house, that can actually be a really cool contrast, and it can look really interesting. I also always come back to the most important part of homemaking is making a house a home. And how do you do that? Make things feel clean, tidy, and cozy. So when people come in, they know that you were expecting them. Your house is clean enough, right? Doesn't have to be perfect, but clean enough that they feel welcome. And as far as coziness, just make sure that every surface looks like a place people can sit down without worrying they're gonna spill something and get you upset. So you wanna have blankets available, you wanna have coasters available, and cups and candles, and things that just make people feel welcome. So that to me is how you would make a house feel like a home. That's how I would home make there. And always, always, always hang pictures on the wall. Whether that be pictures of your family or just like paintings. Putting things on the wall, I think, is the first step to making a house feel lived in. When you don't have anything on the walls, it feels like you're in like a staged home. So I would recommend starting there. What are your thoughts on the alien disclosure stuff? Really interested in your take on this. To be honest, I haven't thought about it very much. I don't really care about aliens. I don't know. I don't think it's real. I don't think I believe in aliens, you guys. I don't think I do. I don't know. I haven't thought about this long and hard, but I don't think I believe in aliens. How do you combat impatience when you're 25 and have never dated? Well, there's a difference between impatience because you have dated and you haven't met the right guy, and impatience because you haven't dated and you want to meet the right guy. You have to put yourself out there in whatever way you can, whether that means going to a lot of single events or signing up for online dating or having your friends set you up. You have to approach dating in many ways like a job, and so you need to put yourself out there. I can understand why you're impatient, and I know that dating is so hard. Oh my gosh, it is so hard. But you know, the impatience of I've dated a lot and I've not met the right person, that is in many ways, I think, harder than I have yet to date. So go ahead and put yourself out there if you can, and get ready to meet people and try to enjoy the process. And also just embrace this single time, because there is value to being single, and there are a lot of wonderful things you can do during this period of your life. You can take yourself on dates, you can go to museums, you can do things on your own schedule, and that is a very different thing than when you get married and when you have children. Why do you think you are better than other women simply because you have a child? I don't. I think that if you want to have children and you either haven't gotten there yet in your timeline, or you're struggling, or whatever else it may be, then we are exactly the same and there is no difference between us. We are all great. If you think that having children is just, who cares? Nobody needs to do it. Do what you want, decide later, put it off, freeze your eggs, whatever. I still don't think I'm better than you. I think that that's a bad decision. Those are different things. I don't think that I am personally a better person than you are. I just think you are making a poor choice, and you aren't giving yourself the opportunity to do something great. Any advice for someone who isn't married but is thinking of being a homemaker? Absolutely. This is the time to learn how to make a home. Learn how to cook, learn how to clean, learn how to make your home wherever you're living cozy, learn how to nourish and nurture children, learn how to create community events and participate. Learn how to budget and time management. I would say buy books on homemaking, treat homemaking like a job, and so start studying how to be the best you can be at it. This is the time. You have time to actually do it rather than trying to fit it in between struggling to make things work, right? Like, I feel like as a homemaker, when you're trying to learn on the job, it's a lot different than when you're studying before getting the job. So you're studying before getting the job. That's great. That's how I would do it. How do you find motivation? I have a hard time self-motivating to do household chores. And can you give us an example of your day-to-day schedule for staying on top of the house? As far as finding motivation, I think people are different. I think I am somebody who likes being in a tidy space. And so not being in a tidy space makes me a little crazy. I also enjoy the process of cleaning because I use that as time to listen to books or listen to podcasts. And so I view chores as a vehicle to listening to things I enjoy. And I think that that's kind of a really good way to motivate, is to use your chore time as also almost like entertainment time. And that's a really fun way to like bring those two things together. As far as my day-to-day schedule shifts every single day because we do something different all the time. But I would say as far as how I tackle the chores, the biggest thing is just staying on top of them all the time. So when my son makes a mess when he's eating, instead of, I used to take him out and deal with the mess later. And then it was like a way worse situation because things got crusty and dried on the floor. Now I clean it up as soon as he's done eating, I wash the tray, and then I take him out, that kind of thing. I will constantly be cleaning a little bit throughout the day. Not crazy, I don't make myself crazy, but I try to, if I notice something, okay, I'll pick it up and put it away, rather than leaving it all for the weekend. I also like to do a 15-minute cleanup every single night, and that helps prepare me for the following day. And that's kind of how I've kept on top of things. But, things are always changing. This has been like the last 2 weeks, and I felt really good about this schedule for me. I feel like it's made a really big difference, but it's not always the case that I'm this tidy. To vax or not to vax? I believe in vaccinations, but not the COVID vaccine. I didn't take the COVID vaccine. My son hasn't had the COVID vaccine. My husband hasn't had the COVID vaccine. None of us have had that. It was too unproven. We were not confident, and I was pregnant at the time, and I was not interested in getting it. So I haven't had it. My son hasn't had it. My husband hasn't had it. But other vaccines, proven vaccines that have stood the test of time, those we feel good about and we are happy to get. Do you ever sing for your baby? What do you like to sing for him? So yes, I mentioned I do love to sing to him. I sing everything. I sing old standards, I sing Disney songs, I sing musical theater. We do kind of like a different medley every night. I've literally had the thought that it would be fun to almost have like a nightly live stream where I share the medley that I sing for my son every night, because it's always different and I love it. I have fun with it and he loves it. It's really nice. I got 2 questions in a row about my wedding ring, which is really funny. One was, I would love to know how you care for your wedding ring. And the other one was, this might sound silly, but did you outgrow your wedding ring during pregnancy? As far as how I care for my wedding ring, I don't do anything special. I clean it every once in a while when it looks dirty. And sometimes when I'm at the mall and wandering around, I'll walk into a jeweler and I'll ask if they can do like a free cleaning, and they say usually yes. And so then I just walk around, have it dealt with and have it cleaned, and it comes out super shiny and sparkly. So that's how I deal with my wedding rings. As far as did I outgrow them in my last pregnancy, I did. And I wasn't able to put them back on until like 3 months after my baby was born. So we'll see what happens this time, but I'm suspecting that that's gonna happen again. As a trad and religious wife, how do you healthily manage sexual desire in marriage? I find this question confusing. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to healthily manage sexual desire in marriage as a religious woman and as a religious wife. Sex in marriage is easily managed because you come to each other and you say, hey, I want to have sex, and the other person says, cool, let's do it. Like, that's how you healthily manage your sexual desire. You manage it by having sex with your spouse. Like, it's great. You have somebody there who's like on board, who wants to have sex with you too. It's wonderful. How are you preparing to have 2 babes? I'm nervous. Yes, same. But I've been watching more and more moms talk about their experience with the transition from 1 to 2. And I think there's so much negativity about that transition, being like, oh, you have it so easy now. You think it's gonna be so easy in the future, but it's not. It's so much harder with 2. And then you talk to people who have like 4 or 5 kids and they're like, yeah, it's great. Like, it's fine. You figure it out. And I was like, oh, okay, that's helpful. So I would say that for us, my son is really too young to understand that there's another baby coming. We try to talk about it to him and he doesn't really understand. For us, it's really about, the thing I'm keeping in mind is that my son is still a baby when our new baby comes. And I don't want to put the expectation on him that he has to be now a big kid because there's a new baby in the house. I want them both to know that they are both my babies and they get to develop at their own pace and they don't have to speed up because there's now a new baby in the house. I also don't ever want him to feel that he's been replaced. And so I've seen some research about how when you introduce the baby for the first time, that like I shouldn't be holding the baby should be off to the side and in his bassinet, so that when my first son sees him, he knows he's not oh, well, this baby's in mommy's arms and I'm not, kind of thing. So, I really want to make sure we nourish that relationship between the two of them, because I cannot wait to see them grow up together as little brothers. It's gonna be so cute. And just getting the house ready. I feel like my nesting instincts are like on high right now. And so I just want to throw out everything and start from scratch and get everything organized. So that's been my main thing. That's how I've been preparing, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'm a new stay-at-home mom, super excited. Any tips or advice, first-time mom with 7-month son? Yes, I would say that number one, routine and time management are gonna be your best friends. If you feel like your day-to-day is chaotic, then you're not gonna enjoy the stay-at-home mom life. You wanna treat it like a job, so treat it like a job. Make time blocks, have to-do lists, be very clear about how you're gonna spend your days, and don't waste them. You don't ever wanna waste them. Also recognize it's not all about entertaining your baby. Your baby is gonna be entertained by whatever you're doing. So doing tasks around the house and letting your baby follow you around is a great way to work with them and engage with them. Like, I love that our day-to-day, I sit down and play with him for maybe like half an hour, but most of the time we're just doing things together. And that's been a really wonderful thing for the two of us. Play gyms, huge benefit in our life is going to play gyms, meeting other moms, meeting other kids, and going for walks and being outside as much as possible. Those are some recommendations. I could probably do a whole video on it, but yeah, that's just a few. What are you excited or nervous for about having 2 under 2? Excited, boys, same age, enjoying life together. Like, that sounds incredible. Excited about having a fuller house. Excited about being a boy mom. Excited about learning how to have 2 kids. Things that I'm nervous about, I don't ever want my older son to feel neglected or like he's not getting enough attention. That's a big one. And number 2 is I just hope I'm good at managing 2 little people. Definitely, I'm sure it will be a lot of fun, but sometimes I'm a little nervous about it because I haven't done before. So that is it for today's Q&A. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye! What do we think about the bye? What do we think about the bye, you guys? I can't decide. Do we stick with the singing bye? Do we just skip over the singing bye? Let me know your thoughts.